Sounds great. Christy, thanks for having us again. And yes, isn't it funny how today's Wednesday, but it kind of feels like a Monday? Uh, I have, for all of you that know, I have spent the entire morning since, well, before 9 o'clock this morning, on the phone with Social Security, the Social Security Administration, and I have, I don't know, like 7 horrible cases of like just it's train wreck, right? Train wreck. And so yeah, unfortunately it's just that the inefficiencies are real with that organization, and it's just so hard to get anything done. So anyway, that's been my Monday for Wednesday today. But anyway, so glad to be here with all of you today. Allison Scarborough Consolidated Planning Group. We are a holistic special needs planning firm. If you've joined our webinars in the past, we're glad you're back. And if you're new to our webinars, new to us, Consolidated Planning Group, we're a holistic special needs planning firm. We do webinars on a weekly basis on special needs planning topics. I come to you as a professional with over 30 years of experience in planning, special needs planning, but I also come to you with the hat of a mom with 2 kids with special needs. So baptized by fire here, and glad to be with you. We have a lot of these webinars just as a result of my desire to put tools and resources in your hands to equip you on your journey for planning for your loved ones with special needs. So what we're going to be talking about today is a letter of intent. A letter of intent is a document that you may have heard of, you may have never heard of, but we want to talk about those today. From a housekeeping perspective, we're going from 12 to 1. We'll be done by or before 1 o'clock. Your cameras and your microphones are muted. We can't see you or hear you, but we do know that you're there. All of my contact information is in the chat box, so you can find it there. If you guys have questions today during this webinar, do put them in the chat box. Don't be shy. Other people have questions too, and your question is probably going to help somebody else. Christy's going to be monitoring the chat box, and she'll read those questions out throughout the presentation. We're not going to save them till the end. If we got a question right now, we're going to address as many of those as we can. At Consolidated Planning Group, as it relates to special needs planning, there's a lot of confusion in our community of who does what, like what are the roles that people play in the special needs planning community. And we are on the financial side. We're the money. You've got special needs attorneys that are going to help you. They're the paper. They're going to help you with legal documents, guardianship, wills, powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, special needs trusts, those types of things. We're the money. We're the money that funds this. We're the calculations when we have a loved one or a family member that's going to have care needs for the rest of their life, not just ours. And families are wondering, how much do I need to set aside for their future care when I'm gone? How do I maximize Social Security benefits if I have a disabled adult child? How do I even get help or know what to do with SSI and Medicaid? Those are a lot of the things that we're able to help with. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors. As a matter of fact, we have a specialized software that is specialized specifically for families who have a loved one with a disability, because our kids can be covered under a parent's record if their disability started prior to age 22. Also, often in our communities, we may have one parent that stayed home a lot of years, or maybe all years, some years, and that parent may be drawing off of the other spouse's records. So our software, what it tells us and tells you is exactly how and when to pull the trigger on those Social Security benefits for retirement to maximize benefits for your entire family, your child with a disability, or if you have multiple kids with disabilities, a spouse, etc. We're able to help you in the transition planning discussions, having money in the right buckets to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. We're also able to help you set up an ABLE account, which is one place that you can have money outside of traditional means. One of 2 places is an ABLE account, a special needs trust, and so we can get you going on an ABLE account. And then we just do a lot of advocacy, and we do this by partnering with organizations that serve individuals with disabilities all across the state. And we do this by providing webinars such as the one that you are attending today. So today, again, what we're talking about here is what is a letter of intent and why do I need one? In our community, we're pretty adept of hearing about a special needs trust and guardianship and partial guardianship and all, wills, powers of attorneys, all these types of things. But a letter of intent is sometimes things that we've heard of. Sometimes they might call it an LOI. And sometimes we've had good intentions of getting one done, but we haven't done it. And the truth is that there is a lot of information that goes into a letter of intent. But really, when you're thinking about a letter of intent and what it is, this is really, I always call it a family love letter. This is, as mom, as dad, as a caregiver for a loved one with a special need, we know more than anybody will ever know about our child and about their needs and what makes them function well, what makes them fall apart, all of the critical information that another person needs to know. So I guess what you got to think about here from a letter of intent perspective is if you became incapacitated today, if you were no longer here on this earth, who else knows this information that's in your brain? You eat, sleep, and breathe this. This is what you do. You know it like the back of your hand. This is what you do. But does somebody else know that? Sure. Maybe you're close with a sibling, a sister, or a neighbor, or maybe your spouse knows some of these things. But what we want is this. We want this to be in a document, on paper, that if something happened to you and you were incapacitated today, that somebody could pick up this document and try to, fill in your shoes or fill in the gap with as little disruption as possible. Of course, if something happens to you or you're incapacitated, that's a big disruption in your family. But we want to prevent it from being much, much bigger, because this information, this critical information as it relates to your loved one with a disability, is not available. And I would kind of liken this to, think about in your families, if you guys have ever had a loss of a loved one, and maybe they haven't just planned very good. And so someone died in the family very unexpectedly, and you guys are literally plundering through drawers, looking at the floorboard of the car, digging and rooting and trying to find little morsels of information that might be helpful in settling their estate. Okay, so that's what we're trying to prevent here, that if something happens to you, that people are not looking in floorboards of cars and in drawers and under mattresses and everything else to get the little granules of truth that they need about your loved one. We want to know everything. So first things first, and I know Christy mentioned this, we are going to share our letter of intent with you today for you to have. That's something that we normally share to our clients, but we do have a form fillable letter of intent. I think it's 20 pages long, which sounds excessive, but it's form fillable. You can type right in it and type your information, which is also going to make it a little bit easier for you to edit this in the future. We recommend, if you don't already have a letter of intent, give yourself some grace here. Maybe set like a goal of I'd like to have this completed in the next 60 or 90 days. You don't have to do it all in one sitting, and you don't have to do it all in one weekend. But if, let's just kind of set a goal of getting it done. But this document is really just going to ensure that your trustee or successor guardian knows their functional abilities, their routines, their interests, particular likes, dislikes. And it's going to go, it's going to go a lot further, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But why do you even need a letter of intent if you already have a last will and testament, or a revocable trust, a special needs trust, guardianship power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney? I would like to say that this is really getting in the weeds with your child. It's kind of talking about diagnoses, health history, medications, treating physicians, likes, dislikes, allergies, etc. And again, what we would like to say here is that, excuse me, that a lot of families, if we've got one family member that's a caregiver, Sometimes the other parent doesn't have all of the details on this because the one parent handles it, the other parent is working. And so just make sure that both parents know what's going on in the event that they have to kind of pick up the pieces. So with this, if you have the last will and testament or the revocable trust or special needs trust, it doesn't get in the weeds with any of this information. This is just the details, and those documents are covering the broader strokes of things, but they're not talking about the day-to-day. What does a day in the life of your child look like? And is that documented anywhere? Does anybody else know that? Where do they go? What do they do? What do they eat? What are they allergic to? There's just so many things that happen, and our kids with complex medical needs, whether they have an intellectual disability or they have much greater disabilities and complex care needs, that's where it all needs to be on there. And again, of course, with intellectual disabilities or some of our kids that might be nonverbal, this is also important because they may not be able to communicate their wishes, or kind of the delivery of something being wrong may be simply that they cry or moan. It's not as clear of maybe a verbal autistic kid that has a meltdown, and we're clear on what they're melting down on, right? So that's what we want to do here. So some of the information that is listed in a letter of intent, this is just kind of an example, and I'm going to stop my share for a second and kind of show you our letter of intent that we're going to be sending out. So today's meeting is being recorded. A copy of today's slides and a copy of our letter of intent and a recording of today will be sent to you following this presentation, either today or tomorrow. But so here are some different things that you might want to consider having in your letter of intent. If you don't use our template, you can create your own. You can do this in a Word document. But the bottom line is we would suggest that you don't handwrite this, because depending on how fluid your situation is with your loved one, sometimes kids with complex care needs, things change fast, right? And so as a result, we would suggest that you update your letter of intent a couple of times a year. And if your things are changing more quickly, then you would want to update that then. So just give me just a second. Right here, this is just kind of a short list of some of the things. And as I did mention, it is a 20-page document. So I'm going to just jump here. Hopefully everybody can see my screen now. I have just pulled up the PDF of the Planning for Special Needs, the Letter of Intent workbook, and that we're going to share with you guys today. And so you guys can get a better understanding of kind of what's in this and what this looks like. But again, we just want to inform your future caregivers of your intention of care for your loved one. So some of it's just basic information that you're going to just know right off the top of your head. Some of the other things, you may have to dig a little bit more. For past doctors, if we had doctors that diagnosed something 20 years ago, or, so we're going to want to get a lot of the information here. But if something happens, having next of kin and other things like this on your list is kind of an important thing. We did have a case this year. In fact, I think we're going to have a webinar with this guy. He was great, but he was a cousin, right? So we had there was a loved one with a disability, an adult with a disability, and both of the parents died in kind of short order, and there was basically no one. And so this cousin ends up being the next of kin and is actually out of state, very, very far away, not just out of state, very far away. And they're trying to figure out, there was no guardianship in place, there was no letter of intent. And this individual with a disability simply could not live on their own, was getting a waiver. And it was just honestly not having these things together proves problematic, and especially if the next of kin is out of state and they're trying to coordinate care for your loved one out of state without the proper documents in place. So anyway, so these are just some additional examples of information that's going on here. This can be an emotional document to fill out. We talk about, in some of our other webinars that all live on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is in the chat box. But we talk about kind of the emotional side effect of like when a family is applying for guardianship, how that can be pretty emotional. Because you're taking rights away from your loved one, and it needs to happen in that situation or whatever. But a lot of times people can feel pretty emotional when they're going through the guardianship process or the partial guardianship process. But I would suggest that as you're going through this and you're filling this out, this can be an emotional process too, because it's in black and white. You already know this stuff. It's not shocking. It's your day to day. It's what you live. You already know this, but I think also putting this out in writing and realizing that this document is so super necessary for the ongoing care of your child if you're gone. I don't know. It's just kind of that death of the dream of like, that's not what you hoped for. It's a reminder is that as parents, so whether it was 20 years ago, whether it was 5 years ago, whether it was 50 years ago, it's not what you hoped for, right? You never hoped that you would be sitting down, filling out a letter of intent for somebody else to pick up the pieces if you're gone. And a lot of times there's anxiety. There is anxiety in parents. Every week we've got parents telling us, I'm just afraid of what's going to happen when I'm gone. And so some of that comes up too. So anyway, just be prepared. And that's why I say don't do it all in one sitting and don't do it all in one weekend. Take little bite-sized steps on this. So this is going to, it's just going to talk about a lot of stuff, religious preferences, education, employment, personality, habits. Again, what are they afraid of? What do they feel better when, such things happen? Is there unique things or things that they do that might be odd or cause conflict or, whatever. So it just goes on and on. Like I said, it is 20 pages, but you're going to kind of document where the location of any important information is. Guys, there is a lot of personal information on this document. So you will choose whether or not you want to share this now or share with your loved ones simply where they can find this document. Or maybe this document is on file with your attorney and your future trustee or successor guardian knows that if something happens to me, I call XYZ attorney. But you just may want to be careful with that because of the simple, the personal information that might be on here that you might not want to share prior to being incapacitated or dead. But let your spouse know where this document is. Let them know where it exists. Most people don't have a safety deposit box anymore, but it might want to be in there. Family attorney might want to have that as well. And we've got a lot of information for a lot of pages here for your story. So all these blank lines here is write your family story, write your heart. This is the letter part, where you're writing a letter to someone who's reading this of what your heart is and what your goal is, why the why behind why you've done this letter of intent, and anything else that you might need to share because it wasn't in the letter of intent. So, and that, again, that in itself could be a sitting or multiple sittings because you really want to think about what is it that I want to say? What do I want to convey? What do I want to make clear? How does somebody else know my heart or what's in my mind as it relates to my loved one? So just be thinking about that. So I just showed you that workbook, but I actually went all the way through the workbook with you. When it comes to our planning and it comes to future care for our kids, whether you've got kids or you've got adults, one day, every day, unfortunately, we're all getting older. We're aging. And as we get older, some of our kids have really, really, really complex care needs, and that we may not always be able to care for them. In other examples, we may not want to always care for them. And that's okay. That is not Mother of the Year badge, Father of the Year badge revoked. You work 30 or 40 years to save up to retire for 25 to 35 years. And when we have a loved one that's going to have care needs for the rest of their life, not just ours, it is real important that when you enter those retirement years that you have some semblance of balance. So, so maybe there's a transition program, maybe there's a day program, maybe there's a respite program where they have maybe a couple of nights a week they are somewhere else. There's so many different ways to think about it, but I guess what I'm saying to you is I really want you to think about that now, while you're of sound mind, while you're of sound body, while you have time to turn the knobs and plan financially for plan A, plan B, plan C. I think now is the time to do it, because 53% of caregivers said that their own health had worsened due to caregiving, and that their declined health affected their ability to provide care. And that is a truth. That is a truth that happens. I've had consistent calls every year of people that are late 70s to mid 80s that are caring for a loved one that is full care. I mean, I just had one in the last few weeks, full care, diapers, ventilator, trach. I mean, like full care. And you can't do as much as you did at 82 as you might have done when you were 42 or 52. And so thinking about it and planning for those days are very, very important. We can help you with that. But 55% of caregivers are unaware to how to establish a lifetime financial plan for their special needs dependent. And so for one, yes, we talked about it a moment ago. Yes, there's a such thing as a special needs trust, and the special needs trust is going to preserve their eligibility for state and federally funded programs such as SSI and Medicaid. And then the trust can also spell out when and how distributions from the trust can provide for your loved one's care after you're gone. ABLE accounts, those are some of the other things. But the bottom line is what most people come to us for is we don't really know how much we should set aside. How do we figure that out? How do we plan for the worst, hope for the best? Or, we also, like it, to say, plan for the rain and hope for the sunshine. And the thing is when we plan for the worst and hope for the best, and the best happens, or a version of the best happens, then it's okay. Nobody's hurt. There's no harm, no foul. But as parents and providers, we simply have a more lucrative retirement. Maybe we can retire earlier. Maybe we can spend more in retirement. Those are all things that kind of these planning, planning ahead is going to help you do. But we just don't want you to get to the point where, you're saying, hey, listen, I'm 80 years old. I'm having chest pains. I'm so stressed. I can't do this. I can't lift him or her anymore. I can't do this. I have a child with, mental health concerns that is a threat to themselves or others. I can't do this. These are all things that we're hearing, and there is help for you. There is support, but it is careful planning, because the help and the support that is out there for you it's far and wide, it's deep and wide. And some of the help and support, because often, I have to tell you from a parent perspective, my parent hat on, a lot of times it feels like there isn't that much help and support. It is frustrating experience. It's like beating your head against the wall with the Social Security Administration, or sitting on endless hold with the Health and Human Services about your waiver, or trying to just figure out if you're ever going to come up on the list on the waiver, seeing how you've been on it for 15 years now. Those are all truths. And if those are, things that have happened to you, you're not alone. But kind of navigating some of these things, having a plan, working our plan, thinking about future care. Is it in-home care? Is it assisted living? Is it an adult daycare? Is it a residential treatment program? Is it a respite program only, because you really do want your loved one to stay with you all the time, for the exception of a few things respite? But the bottom line is you got to have a break. We all have to have a break, and it may look like a vacation. This may just be silence, right? There could be any number of things that looks like a break to you, but we all have kind of hopes and dreams and goals as it relates to our retirement, the method behind the madness of why we work so hard, why we save money, and why we do what we do. So just thinking about this and having that balance is just going to be super, super important. Because we share the letter of intent with everybody, this is a shorter presentation than typically. We're typically running from 12 to 1. But these are some things, I'm going to hit on these. We will be finishing early, and do put your questions in the chat box. But these are things that should be on your special needs planning radar. And as I mentioned, our YouTube channel, it is free to subscribe. It's in the chat box, and when you get your email later today, you'll have, it's Consolidated Planning Group on YouTube channel is the bottom line, but you'll have a link to that, and you can subscribe to that for free. We do webinars on a weekly basis on all topics surrounding special needs. So if you've got questions on any of these bullet points here, we've got an entire webinar dedicated to that very specific topic. And the truth is each one of these topics can and does have an hour-long webinar, because the ins and outs of each one of these things is convoluted. Everything we do, everything we touch when it comes to planning for our kids with disabilities is convoluted and unnecessarily difficult. So we try to help you there with those tools and resources. But so we've talked a little bit about developing a comprehensive special needs care plan. We can help with that. The future care cost estimates so if you're a family that says, I know that they're going to need care, I don't know how much, I need help with that, I want to plan for that, we can help with that. Texas waivers and interest list. If you don't know, I know a lot of you do, and so I'm not insulting anybody here, but Texas waivers, these are Medicaid waivers in the state of Texas that are designed to help waive off the cost of some of the care associated for caring for our loved ones with a disability. These are home and community-based services, and they are designed to keep your loved one in their home, or community-based services, or a small group homes of 4 or less. But they may pay for attendance services, they may pay for respite hours, speech therapy, occupational, physical, every type of therapy, music therapy, equine therapy, art therapy, you could just go on and on, even massage therapy are some of these waivers. But in Texas, the waivers interest lists are very, very long. You want to make sure your kids are on all of the interest list. There's HCS, Texas Home Living, Community First Choice, CLASS, there's MDCP for the minors, there's Star Plus, there's a number of waivers. And so if you don't know about this, or you don't think your child is on this list, you're going to want to get them on the list. On our YouTube channel, you can find the waivers presentation. And also, if you email us, we'll actually send it to you, because there's some links in there and there's even a slide in there of how do I get on the waivers interest list, who do I call, what do I do, that kind of thing. It gives you all of the details on that. Okay, so then let's talk about SSI, SSDI. We want you to understand the differences and knowing when to apply. And the truth is most people don't know the difference of SSI and SSDI. SSI is a means-based program. SSDI is a workers-based program. It only would make sense that SSDI would be our kids, right? Because they're disabled. So Social Security disability, that would make sense. But the interesting thing is most of our kids, at least initially, are covered under SSI and Medicaid once they turn 18, because it's a means-based program. They're not earning anything. They don't have any money, and they qualify for SSI and Medicaid. SSDI, they pay into as they work. So if they never work, they don't necessarily get SSDI unless it is under a parent's record. So again, entire webinars on this topic. Again, we can help you with this. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors. So if you've got confusion when it comes to SSI and Medicaid, SSDI and Medicare, we can definitely help you. There's always I call them the stump to chump questions, is the one-offs, the abnormal cases, and they happen all the time, and they've just become more and more prevalent since COVID. It's basically it's been hard. So if you're struggling with that, reach out. ABLE accounts, again, a place where you can have money above and beyond the $2,000 for the means-based test for SSI and Medicaid. Won't be counted against them, will not make them lose SSI or Medicaid. We always like to talk about beneficiary designations. It's very, very important that you do not name, and other people don't name, like your parents or grandparents or somebody else like that, any affluent family members that might leave your loved one money. It's important that they don't leave that money to them outright, as opposed to leaving it to their special needs trust for the benefit of said child. When they leave money to that loved one outright, then basically that money is going to be counted against them for SSI and Medicaid, and they stand to lose those benefits. The workaround for that is to get a court order and have that money redirected to a first-party special needs trust. But bottom line is there's no there's no Medicaid payback on a third-party special needs trust. So when we're doing our beneficiary designations, the right way we want to set things up to leave money to that trust is to leave it to the third-party special needs trust for the benefit of said child. Then there's no Medicaid payback. Everything is good. So you want to check those. If you're kind of taking notes, I always say check your beneficiaries, because what a lot of people do, and if you did this, I always say it's wrong. But you're not alone. 99% of people, when we have this conversation, have done it this way. They have their beneficiaries set up for life insurance, investment accounts, 401ks, 403bs, etc. And basically they say, like, if you're married, so if I'm married, then if I pass away, then my spouse is going to get the money. And then they add a contingent beneficiary. So if I die and then my spouse is already dead and gone, then who gets the money? And what most people do is say, that's easy. It'll be split evenly amongst my children. And the reason this is wrong is because we're naming your disabled child outright, and that's going to cause them to lose their benefits, which we don't want to do. The other reason this is wrong is if you have minor children that are not disabled and we leave them the money outright in their name, that money's going to sit in trust for them until they turn 18. And when they turn 18, they're going to get all of the money, which is another bad idea, because I've not seen any 18-year-olds in 30 years that are able to handle large sums of money. So again, a special needs trust or a testamentary trust are all ways that you can get this set up to fix that. Beneficiary designations, you don't have to hire somebody or pay somebody to help you get that fixed. If you need to fix this with your 401k, 403b, pensions, you can contact your employer or, the 800 number on any of your statements. As it relates to life insurance with the employer, you can contact your HR department and get your beneficiary designation form. And if you have outside life insurance with any other carriers, you would contact those carriers directly, either by their 800 number or through their portal, and ask for a beneficiary change form, and you can kind of get that updated. But I would double check it and triple check it. Sometimes people do beneficiaries and they forget them. I've really honestly seen where someone has died and the beneficiary was not at all who they wanted it to be. Maybe it was an ex-spouse that they never changed, for example. So definitely check those out, kind of see, where you're at with that, and if anything needs to be updated on that. And this is also true for transfer on death or payable on death on your bank accounts. So special needs trust, how to fund them, and child support being, redirected post age 18 to a special needs trust. So what you need to know is, even though your child may not qualify for SSI and Medicaid right now, maybe they're under 18 and you make too much money. Once they turn 18, it's based off of their assets and income, not yours. So it's a good probability that they're going to qualify for SSI and Medicaid. But if you have child support that's going to continue post age 18, the Social Security Administration is going to kind of count that as income against them, and it's going to reduce or eliminate their SSI. So that needs to be redirected to a first-party special needs trust, which does have a Medicaid payback. But if it's redirected to a first-party special needs trust, then it will not be counted against them for their SSI and Medicaid. We suggest starting touring residential living facilities at age 15, transition programs, various programs post-high school. Once they leave the high school, whether it's public or private, what is next? where is next? Because next can't be we're just going to come home and do nothing and play video games. We're not going to have any interaction with others. We're not going to be active in the community. We do nothing. So a lot of these places have waiting lists. So we want you to start touring early. A lot of the requirements is that you tour to be able to be on their list. Just because you come up on their list doesn't mean you have to take them up on it, but you want to have options of somewhere to go, not somewhere that you need to go and nowhere to go because the waiting lists are too long. As it relates to guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, supported decision making, guardianship, you can start that guardianship process 6 months prior to your child turning 18. If your child is over 18 and you need to do guardianship, you say you're late to the party, you didn't do it. Now what do I do? Am I too late? No, you can still do it. We always say work with a qualified attorney to talk through this. Guardianship is not right for everybody. A lot of our kids with disability, I've got 2 kids with disability and I do not have guardianship on either one of them. It's not applicable in our situation. A qualified attorney, which we're happy to make referrals all across the state. We've got attorneys that we know and trust all across the state that do this, that we can make a referral to you, but they're going to partner with you in talking and learning more about the functionality of your loved one. What is their IQ? What are their needs? And helping you learn what your options are and what might be the best fit for your loved one. In the state of Texas in general, and in summary too, is that it's the most appropriate, least restrictive option, most appropriate for the loved one with a disability is kind of the general rule of thumb. So parents can't just willy-nilly say, I'm getting guardianship of the kid, is the bottom line. And there is a such thing as supported guardianship, which doesn't take some of the rights away that the full guardianship does. So just have those conversations and just know that you're not late. I mean, we've had families even recently that are in their 70s and adult disabled child in their late 50s that they should have guardianship of, that they do not, that they're starting the process. So just know it's okay wherever you are on that. And so then, of course, we have webinars on post-high school options for individuals with disabilities as well. So again, every single one of these bullet points on here, we've got webinars for every single one of them. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel and listen to any of the ones that are appropriate for you. And of course, we're always happy to chat with you. Just want you to meet our collaborative team here. Our office staff is also not pictured here. But we do work on a collaborative team at Consolidated Planning Group. And oftentimes when we're doing these webinars, there are questions that are more personal that people don't want to ask in the chat box or things like that. Certainly feel free to reach out to us. Our consultations are always free. So if you have additional questions or you kind of want to know a little bit more about how we work, how we can help you if you need a Social Security analysis, those types of things, you can reach out to our firm. In your link, this QR code takes you to a calendar where you can book yourself for an initial meeting where we'll talk to you a little bit further about your journey and kind of where you are and what your needs are. But also when you guys receive the email later with the letter of intent document, as well as our slides and the recording, there will be also a place there that you can click the link should you want to, meet with us individually and kind of talk more about your story. So thanks so much, everyone. Christy, that's what I've got for today. If anybody has any questions, I hope that you will put them in the chat box, because I am truly happy to answer any additional questions. We've got just a little bit of time. We're not going to run this whole time, but if you've got a few additional questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Well, Allison, right now it looks like our chat box has no questions in it. But guys, like she said, if you have any questions about the letter of intent or anything that she's discussed, since we do have a little bit of time, and normally when Allison's with us, we don't have extra time because she has enough information that she takes us right to that 1 hour mark. So now is a good time to pick her brain if you've got questions, because she's got a little time.
And we try, and sometimes I say I talk fast. I do talk fast. This is a lot of information, but you know what? I'm a busy girl, and I know you guys are busy too. And what I try, I never want a webinar ever. Nobody wants to go to webinars for the sake of going to webinars. Thank you very much. We want information, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Give me the information. What are the 3 things that I can take away from this webinar and implement for my family, for my loved one? And so all of our webinars are tied to give you 3 nuggets, at least 3 nuggets that, you know, are light bulb moments of, yes, I need to do that. Let me put that on my list, or let me check that. So we definitely want that for everyone. But what I would say, if there are any additional questions, what I would say is don't feel overwhelmed. You do have this. You are not alone. There is a lot of resources. There's a lot of help out there for you. And also, if you were wondering, am I crazy? Am I dumb? No, it is hard. This stuff is hard. And you know, the thing is like sometimes I have calls like today with, you know, the Social Security Administration or a local authority or some of these other places that are here to help you. And you literally ask them a question and they simply just don't know the answer, or the information that they give you is wrong on every level. and so you feel pretty defeated. And if you ever felt that way, you're not alone. I have felt that way too. And also, just don't give up. Some days you need to hang it up for the day. Just forget it. I'm too mad. I can't look at it. There's days that I get stuff. I get stuff in the mail, you know, and I say, I'm not even opening that today. No, tomorrow is a new day. I must start fresh tomorrow. So don't just know that you're not alone in that regard. So did we have any additional questions?
Yes, we did. We had 2 come in. The first one is Tony wants to know, what did you say the website is called for the Texas interest waivers list?
So that's a complicated question, Tony. But on our YouTube channel, there is the Texas waivers webinar. And again, if you email me, I'll send you that waivers presentation. The waivers interest list is governed by your local intellectual disability authority. And I don't know, Chrissy, if you have that link where they can look up who their local authority is. I don't know if you have it handy. It's okay if you don't. But the HHS, you can look up your local intellectual disability authority on the Health and Human Services website. And there's a place where you can put your zip code in, and it's going to tell you exactly who your local authority is. That's where you're going to get on the waiver or interest list for HCS, Texas Home Living, Community First Choice. There's a separate phone number for MDCP. There's a separate phone number for the class waiver. There's a separate phone number for the Star Plus waiver. So the MDCP, deaf, blind, multiple disabilities, and I think there's one other that falls under that one. But the bottom line is your local authority handles some of them, and then there's 800 numbers for others. And just so you know, some people say, oh yeah, I'm on all the interest lists. When the reality is they've called their local authority and they are on the interest list that the local authority manages, but they've never called class, they've never called MDCP or Star Plus or some of these other ones out there. So just really do your homework on that. If you need additional help, let us know. But the Health and Human Service website, put your zip code in, and we do have a link for that we put in our webinars for the waivers. And the recording for the waiver webinar is helpful, and it is on the YouTube channel. Okay.
What else we have another one from Dolly, who says, what if guardianship and a special needs trust is already set up? We have SSI as well, but would like to start charging rent for our adult disabled son. Do you have information or resources about that?
Yes, reach out to us. We do have like a template, like of a rent or fair share agreement, but we would want to talk to you more about your unique situation. But because we do actually recommend that, you know, it's kind of playing the game with the Social Security Administration. If you don't charge your child rent, then they cut the benefit. Right now, it's $841 a month, and if you don't charge your child rent, they cut your benefit by 1/3. So what does that make it? $6 something a month is basically what happens. So basically, if you put a rent or a fair share agreement, I'm a fan of the rent agreement personally, because I think the fair share agreement is way, way, way too much work, because they want, if you do the fair share agreement, you have to prove that your kid is paying their fair share, which means you have to get a list of the cost of food and shelter and utilities and divide it by the number of people in the household, and you have to prove all of that. So it's like, to me, that's like 3 hours of work. Like, seriously, it'd just be easier for me to charge rent, which is what I do. But the rent it's an easy thing to put in place, and then once you get that into the Social Security Administration, then they'll increase the benefit. I think it might be 622. Somebody help me out here. I was like thinking 840. So if we did the 841 divided by 3, so basically that's 280. So you might be getting 561. That might be the number that you're getting right now if you don't have a rent or a fair share agreement in place. And just know, if you're getting 561, you can get more. We can help you get that. And there is there's just a way to go about doing that. Okay. I hope that was helpful. What else do we have?
We have a comment from Jayesh saying, as always, you bring a lot of great set of information. We appreciate it. And then the question that is there is the HCS program the best versus class?
And so that is to be determined. So that's a good question. Thank you for your comment. You can email us. We do have a spreadsheet. And it looks like, oh my gosh, are they sending me something old because it's from 2018? And no, the truth is the state of Texas has not updated it since then. Anyway, but we have a spreadsheet that basically highlights all of the waivers out there, what their budgets are, who they're for, and what they cover. And so as from, depending on the waiver, depends on the size of the budget, depending on the level of need of the individual, also depends on that as well. And then also one thing I will tell you is that there is, things that are underutilized. Like, a lot of people that are getting waivers are not using all of their hours that they have. So you want to make sure, if you are getting a waiver, that you are not underutilizing your program. But the other piece of information that I want to share here too, because sometimes people are asking this question because they were getting class and now they've come up on the HCS list and they're wanting to know if they should switch, because you don't get both. And it's one or the other. And your caseworker should, not always, but should be able to help you. You should be able to work with your local authority. You should be able, there's a lot of organizations you can reach out. We can point you and get you in the right direction. But what I would say is, before you sign off on giving up what you have, know what you're getting, because sometimes people will switch from one to the other and they lose attendant hours or they lose respite hours that are critically needed. So you got to do an assessment. And just because the other person on the phone tells you, oh yeah, this is better, you got to do an assessment on what is better for you and your loved one, because just because they might want you to switch does not mean it's better for you. So thank you for putting that out there. That's not something that we normally talk about in these meetings. So I think that is very true. Can I see another one? Can you please send the rent agreement or fair share agreement template? Also, if rent is high, the benefit may get impacted in case it goes over and they consider you are funding a portion of it. My best recommendation is from a perspective, is charging $500 a month is basically my best recommendation as far as charging rent. And then basically, when you are charging rent, when your loved one gets paid, then they simply pay you, or if you're their representative payee, you move that money from that account to your account. And if you want to turn around and move that money right into their ABLE account, like you pay yourself first, and then as a rent recipient, I've received the rent and I don't want it and I want to deposit it into their ABLE account, you definitely can. You can do that. And for the rent agreement, you can reach out to us because we want to know your situation a little bit better. But we do have a template that you can use. It's kind of a fill in the thing, so you don't have to create it yourself. And we've had a lot of families use this, and it definitely has been helpful. Okay.
So Allison, it looks like we have a couple of other comments maybe. My son is on HCS already and on waiting list with class. Group home benefit is an HCS, but class does not show it.
And I think it does have to be the HCS for the group home. And so that's a valid point where you want to look at that very closely. There's one that is like designed to get folks out of the facility. And I think that the HCS is designed that, you know, if it's going to be kind of a group home setting, that's where it needs to be. So I agree with that. You got to look at that closely. Someone said more therapies on class are provided, but HCS provides for residential placement, where as far as I'm aware, other waiver programs like class do not provide for residential like group homes or companion care homes. Can you charge rent if your home is paid off? Yes, you absolutely can. And basically what the rent agreement is saying is, listen, I'm charging John $500 a month, and I'm charging John the same amount that I would charge any boarder in my home, right? And so that's what that is. That's what you would say in that regard. I see what is HCS? That's good. Home and community-based services. I guess there's no B in that one, but like it's basically home and community services is what they're looking at. Because again, the interesting thing is everybody's like, is your kid on the list? Is your kid on the list? Where are they on the list? How long have they been on the list? And then people are like, what are you even talking about? Like we know that they're on the list, but like what they're on the list for, what we're actually going to get out of it, why do I even need to be on the list? And if I ever come up on the list, which it seems like I might not ever, what am I going to get? And again, that is the truth is these waivers are designed, you know, I wanted to just step back just for a second, because 30 or 40 years ago, if you had a loved one with a disability, then clearly you should just institutionalize the person. You should terminate the pregnancy. All of these wrong ways of thinking of individuals with a disability. And thankfully, our world has evolved that we live in now, and that's not the opinion. There's been a paradigm shift in mindset that loved ones with a disability are best. They're at their best and at their peak in home and community-based services, not being completely institutionalized. So again, what these waivers are for is to prevent your loved one from being institutionalized, or if they are already institutionalized, getting them back into community, home, and community-based services to getting them back to center. So that's what that's for. All right, any last questions?
Yeah, Allison, Tony, who also asked what HCS stands for, wants to know, is that contact@cpgcares.net the best way to get in touch with you?
Yes, that is the best way to get in touch with us, and that phone number there as well. And again, you can take a picture of this QR code right there. Honestly, the best way probably is to take a picture of the QR code and simply just schedule with us. But you can also call that number on the screen and connect with us directly and get on the schedule. So there's a lot of ways that you can connect with us electronically by booking yourself an appointment that's at a time that's convenient for you. You can email us directly at the contact@cpgcares.net, or you can call the phone number on the screen as well. Hey, I love all these great questions, by the way. You guys are awesome. And see, every time somebody asks these questions, somebody else is learning and benefiting from this. So I do love that.
So we did have one come up in the Q&A. I don't know if you could see that, Allison, but it says, how do I find out who my child's caseworker is? I've called to find out and they could not find them. Any further suggestions?
That's shocking. And that's one of those things of like, I liken to beating your head against the wall. So if you're not on a waiver, you probably don't have a caseworker, right? So if you're not getting HCS or class or Texas Home Living, you may not even have a caseworker, but this is going to be the Health and Human Services line, the 800 number. And what I've learned, and I'm sorry to not give you the exact time if it's 8 or 9, I think it's 8, it might be 9, but I always say, hey, nobody got time for that. Like, you're going to call these people and you're going to sit on hold for an hour or longer or 45 minutes. And at the 45-minute mark, they what? Oh, yeah, disconnect you. So then you can start that whole train over again. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe happens to me. But what I have learned is that if you want to call the Health and Human Services line, well, number one, there's a portal, so you can find some things out in the portal. Most of the time, I end up having to call. But if you call right when they open, your wait time is about 5 minutes, not an hour. Okay. So note to self, if you need to call Health and Human Services, that's who you're going to call and find out who your caseworker is, kind of get escalated. Don't be afraid to ask for a supervisor if you're not getting the answers, but call first thing in the morning, Monday through Friday, and you will not hold for an hour or longer. You still may have a frustrating experience. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, but you won't hold for 15 years. So.
And then the other question, Laura, I saw that you put in the Q&A was, yes, you will be receiving an email from Allison, including the template for the letter of intent. And along with that is going to be their website, their YouTube information. So you can go back and pick up the beginning of this webinar off of their YouTube channel. So she came in a little late and she was wanting to know about being able to listen to the part of the webinar that she missed.
Somebody just mentioned this, and we definitely do mention this in our waiver presentation. I just dropped all my contact information in there one more time, so that way it's kind of fresh in the chat box because it's at the top, and now it's in there. But someone said diversion slots are available to apply for, whereas you can apply for a waiver program in a crisis emergency situation. That is absolutely true, and you do call your local intellectual disability authority for that. Your local authority, again, this is where you can find this, and you put your zip code in. You can contact us. We can send you a link for that, and you can find that. But if you have a loved one who is a threat to themselves or others, they are at risk of being placed outside of the home because you can no longer care for them because they're a risk, to themselves or others. Maybe there's all kinds of reasons of crisis. It might be, I gave an example earlier today where the adult kids, both parents had died. That's a crisis. Sometimes it's a crisis when one parent has died because the other parent has to work. Somebody's got to fund all this, right? One parent has to work and now the caregiver has died. That is a crisis. So, maybe your home flooded and maybe your kid's on a ventilator and all kinds of, who knows? Like there's all kinds of things that could be considered a crisis. And we always say, you can contact us and we can talk to you and we can help. You start with your local authority. And most of the time, the local authority is able to help. And sometimes there's other organizations that will get involved to get that crisis diversion slot pushed through. But there is a such thing for that. So thank you for putting that in the chat box and sharing that with families, because the truth is a lot of families have been in crisis over the last couple of years. Families that have had kids with mental illness, it just went through the roof with COVID. It was like maybe manageable. Some days was manageable, some days it wasn't prior to COVID, and most days it wasn't after COVID, right? And so we've got a lot of families that are struggling right now. So thank you for that, Christy. I'm glad that we have this time for this Q&A. We're going to finish right on time. It's been a pleasure, everyone. Again, Allison Scoburg here, Consolidated Planning Group. It's been a pleasure to be with you again, Christy. If you guys have any additional questions that I wasn't able to answer today, I am happy to answer them. So just reach out, get on our calendar, schedule a free consultation. We'll help you any way that I can. So, and I think, Christy, you were going to do an evaluation really quick before people jumped off.
Yes, I am. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to launch that. And Allison, I always tell people that my brain feels like mush after your webinars because I learned so much information. And it's always so good. And I've appreciated everything and learning. And I know our parents have. We've gotten tons of great feedback from our parents about the information that you provided. And I look forward to us being able to collaborate again.
Absolutely. Well, that makes my heart happy. Well, get with Meredith and schedule it. I just show up. I just show up to the meetings. But
Yeah.
Meredith would be happy to schedule. We've got lots of topics. There's so many burning topics out there, that people need help with. But so good. We're glad. We want to be helpful. We want to empower you and give you the tools and resources that you need to be successful. So thanks so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon, Christy. Take care.
Yes, have a great one, Allison.
Bye now.
Bye. So those of you guys, if you could take a couple of minutes to fill in the evaluation, that would be awesome. Knowing that Allison has a ton more webinars that could be provided for you guys, what I will do is I will take this opportunity to put my email in the chat box. So if you have a topic maybe that you would like to see if Allison can address, then I will be happy to take those topics back to her coworker, Meredith, see if they have a webinar that covers that, and we can schedule a time and place for Allison to come back and talk to us. Because I know the whole guardianship, financial planning, SSI, SSDI, all that stuff can be very overwhelming and can make your head spin. So I will be happy to host her back again to answer any questions or in any topics that you guys feel like you might want to hear from in the future. So if you could, like I said, please take a couple of seconds or a minute to fill out this evaluation. That would be great because we do welcome any and all feedback. My contact information, my email is in the chat box. So if you are needing assistance from me as a regional coordinator to help you navigate school, even though it's just about over, but maybe plan for school next year, look at IEPs, look at evaluations, please reach out to me. And if you are in my area, I will be glad to help you. If you're not in my area, then I will be glad to get you connected to the regional coordinator that's in your area that you can work with. So we are all throughout the state, and we are happy to assist our parents in any way that we can. And I'm sorry, I'm seeming a little distracted. We have a new puppy, and he's awake now from his nap, and he's tearing, he's trying to find things to tear up in my office. So yeah. So I'm going to leave the evaluation up for just a few more minutes or seconds and see if we can get everybody to fill it out. Thank you, Mabel, for coming. Hope you guys have a great, hope you have a great day too. Dolly, the evaluation should be up on the screen. So all you have to do is just answer the questions. All right, guys, this is perfect. We have 12 out of 12 people who filled out the evaluation. This is awesome. Oh, then as long as you answered the questions, you're good. You're good, Dolly, you're good. Yes, Lucy, I see your question, and Allison's, someone from Allison's staff will be sending you guys an email that will have her PowerPoint presentation and that template for the letter of intent. So you should be getting that in your email, I would imagine today, later today or tomorrow. If for whatever reason you don't get it, please reach out to me via email and I will get in touch with either Allison or Meredith, my contact, and I will make sure we get it for you. Dolly, my contact information, my email is in the chat, But what I'll do is I will re-put it in the chat so it's at the bottom right now. And I just added it, Dolly. There, I just added my email to the chat. So please make a note of that email if you have any questions, any concerns, need any assistance from me as a regional coordinator, or if for any reason you don't get the information from someone in Allison's staff, then reach out to me and let me know, and we'll see if we can get things taken care of for you. All right, everybody. Well, it looks like the evaluation is done. Thank you for taking the time to fill that out. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to Allison and to her information about letter of intent. Dolly, I'm looking in the chat right now, and if you look, oh, you know what? You're right. Holy guacamole. I've been sending that message to myself. How silly. There, try now. There it should be. All right, everybody. Great. I'm glad you found it, Dolly. You guys have a great day, and let me know if we can help. Thank you. Bye-bye.